Hey, what's up, guys? I miss y'all. I really do. I hope that most of you have been doing your work as I look online. Most of you have been completing your work. Great job. Some of you, not sure what's going on, but you're not turning in your work and not getting it submitted. All right, now remember, everybody in this country, well, not everybody, but many, many thousands of people are on It's Learning right now. So it's loading. Even for me, when I'm opening up your documents, it goes very slowly. So when it says not authorized to get on or gives you some type of error, it's not you. It is the system being overloaded. So just give it a break. Take a step back from it. We are going to be very flexible. We're going to try our best to be as flexible and patient as we possibly can with you guys. So just do your best to get the work in. I'm wanting you to do well. I have not received many questions about what you're learning, so kind of wondering about that. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take a look at what we have here, what you've been learning all week long, and I'm going to give you like a summary. We're going to take a look at the document together, the PowerPoint, and we'll just kind of talk about it. And if you have any questions afterwards, please send me some messages. Let's have a conversation about it. So what I'm going to give you today is the basic of what you need to know. Our standard is SS8H9, and it's to describe the role of Georgia in World War II. So again, like the other units, we're not learning the entire World War II. You got the basics back in 5th grade. All I'm giving you, I'm trying to get to, are the basics of what happened in the state of Georgia. Okay, so we're going to start off with a little bit of background, and then we'll jump into Georgia. Okay. All right. So when World War II erupted in September of 1939, many Americans saw it as a European problem. So America was like, hey, that's what they're doing over there, not our problem, not going to get into it. And that's what happened for a long time. The United States kind of stayed out of the war. And that's what we're hoping to do. Because if you remember what was going on before this, hopefully you said a Great Depression, and Roosevelt's trying to lead us out of that Great Depression, and here comes the war. So as Germany continued to be victorious and take over nation after nation, the U.S. continued to watch from the sidelines. And in the Pacific, Japan was taking over large portions of China and other countries of the Southeast Asia, and the U.S. continued to remain neutral. So neutrality. Isolationism. We were staying away from all of this. America officially stayed out of the fight until December 7th, 1941. President Roosevelt and the U.S. Congress were anything but neutral. So we'll get to that in just a second. If you take a look at your chart here, you see these were some of the major leaders in the world. Our enemies. Just as America turned to Roosevelt as a means to recover from depression, many European nations began to turn to fascist dictators who promised to end the depression. These folks had complete control, complete say of their countries. What they said went. All right, so we have pretty much two sides. You guys remember this from 5th grade, I hope. World War II began on September 1st, 1939, with Nazi Germany's surprise attack on Poland. And we could literally stay on this for a while. The causes of this war, the carryover from World War I. But again, our focus is going to be in Georgia. For the second time in the 20th century, the world was divided into two hostile armed camps, alliances. So we had the Axis powers, Germany, Japan, and Italy. And then we have the Allies, Great Britain, France, Soviet Union. You notice who's not here. The United States is not in this thing yet. Take a look at this map. The Axis powers quickly gained the upper hand in the war, conquering much of Europe and the Pacific. But the United States chose, again, to remain what? Neutral in the conflict. All right, so how was the United States involved in the war without being in the war? So this is a part of your standard. It says describe the key events leading to American involvement in World War II, include the Lend-Lease Act. So you need to understand the Lend-Lease Act. The U.S. sent billions of dollars in supplies to the United Kingdom, France, the Soviet Union, and China. In exchange, these allied countries gave the U.S. the privilege to use military bases in their countries if necessary. So even to this day, guys, if you take a look at the United States and where we have bases all over the world. You don't have other countries have their bases in the United States, but we happen to have our bases all over the world. Somebody's texting me. I think it's Miss Bradley. Nope. So we're looking. We have this. This is the beginning of that. We have, in order for us to lend or lease things out to other countries, they're going to give us permission to set up our bases all over the world. So that's pretty awesome because we can have immediate access if something pops off. So the Lend-Lease Act was passed by Congress in February of 1941 and signed into law by Roosevelt in March. For the next 4 years, the U.S. continued to supply the country supplies and military equipment while taking part in the war as well. Though there was considerable opposition to the Lend-Lease Act by opponents of war, this program successfully helped Great Britain defend against German invasion. So if we take a look at the chart here, this is the Lend-Lease Act. Though the U.S. was neutral, Roosevelt wanted the democratic nations of Europe, mainly France and Great Britain, to survive. In 1941, Congress passed the Lend-Lease Act, lending supplies to any country whose defense was critical to U.S. security in exchange for bases on Greenland and Iceland. The U.S. ultimately provided the Allies with $50 billion in supplies. So we're providing machinery, we're providing planes, we're providing all kinds of supplies to their war effort. Remember, we're not in the war, but we're providing what they need to fight the war because, again, Roosevelt wants France and Great Britain to survive this thing. Lend-Lease was able to allow the U.S. to support the Allies without committing U.S. troops. So we don't have any troops on the ground, but we do, again, are lending and supplying supplies. If you take a look at that diagram there, the United States is not in this war with soldiers on the ground, but we are providing supplies. Roosevelt referred to the United States as an arsenal for democracy. Japanese aggression in Asia. Tensions between the United States and the Empire of Japan increased because Japanese conquest of China, Thailand, and Indochina. December 7th, 1941, the Empire of Japan launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. A day that would live in infamy. You guys should have watched that video yesterday. One of the most tragic events in American history, of course, was the Japanese attack on the naval base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. On December 7, 1941, over 300 Japanese planes attacked Pearl Harbor in hopes of crippling the U.S. in order to further their plans to take more land in the Pacific. In the attack, over 2,000 Americans were killed, and the U.S. lost over 150 ships. While the attack accomplished its goal of damaging the U.S. Navy, it also changed the vast majority of opinions about staying out of the war. On December 8, 1941, in a moving speech, President Roosevelt called December 7th a day that will live in infamy, and asked Congress to declare war on Japan, which it did. 2 days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S., which America responded in turn. From December 8th to 1941 until victory in 1945, America fought a two-front war against Japan, Germany, and Italy. All right, so let's talk about that. So this pulls the United States in. It's like, what do we do now? You bombed our base, you attacked America, you killed our soldiers. We're all in. On June 6, 1944, the U.S. led the D-Day invasion of Nazi-occupied Europe. By May 8, 1945, Hitler was dead and Nazi Germany surrendered to the Allies. By August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered to the Allies after the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This is always a wonderful conversation that we actually had in class. I'm going to answer this text real quick. There we go. Yes, my wife asked me, do I want some hot tea? I absolutely want some hot tea. So this is a great conversation that we have in class. And the question is, do you think it was right for the United States to drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Were there other options? Was this the best course of action? So I'm going to put that in the discussion board for Friday. So if you will take a look at it, just give me your quick thoughts, and you can respond to others. Please remember to be respectful. Remember that I can read everything that you post. So don't be rude to others. So I need for you to respond, and then respond to somebody else as well. It doesn't have to be real long, just curious. Again, this is always a great conversation that we have in class. So I just want your thoughts. Okay? Hot topic. War brings prosperity. All right, so evaluate the purpose. This is element B. Evaluate the purpose and economic impact of the Bell Bomber plant, military bases, and the Savannah and Brunswick shipyards. All right, so Georgia was instrumental in providing military support to the war effort, from building aircraft and Liberty ships to the quality training that the infantry received. Georgia's participation in the war effort was essential to the Allied success of World War II. In the short term, the arrival of Bell Bomber Plant in Marietta, Georgia, yep, right here in Georgia, was important for producing the B-29 bombers. Now, if you're not familiar, take a look at the picture here. These are these humongous planes that would try to fly at higher altitudes, and drop these bombs. Big problem is that they're humongous, and these small German aircraft will come and shoot them down. With many of these planes actually did not make it back because of they got shot down. So amazing airplanes, technology from World War I to World War II, just amazing advancements. Most of these built in the state of Georgia. 1942, Bell Aircraft built the Bell Bomber plant in Marietta. So we always talk about these things. So if they're building all of this stuff, that gives people jobs. If people have jobs, they're spending money. If they're spending money, the economy is going well. So this provided thousands of jobs in the state of Georgia to support this war effort. All right, so let's see here. It says the company was able to produce over 650 of the bombers before the end of World War II. These planes were used in World War II and later in the Korean War. However, the Bell Bomber Company had an even more important impact on the economy of Georgia. During the war, almost 30,000 people, many from Georgia, were employed at the largest plant to have ever been built in the Deep South. I mean, this has been a big change for the New South era, hasn't it? I mean, we go from being agriculture before the war, and we had the New South era where we're pushing towards industry, and now we have the largest factory in the Deep South. Off the there. All right, these plants were used in World War II and later in the Korean War. Okay, where am I? It says The plant closed until 1951. However, the Lockheed Martin Company took over the facility that continued to employ Georgians till today. Due to the proximity of the plant, the Dobbins Air Force Base was located nearby, adding more employment opportunities for the states. During World War I, there were more military facilities in Georgia than any other state. During World War II, due to the number of men and women in uniform, many of these bases grew in size. Fort Benning, I'm sorry, I keep losing my place, guys. I am going blind. They played an important role in training and supplying the military during the war. For example, Fort Benning near Columbus, Georgia, was the largest and viewed as the best infantry facility during the war. Interestingly, these bases also held thousands of enemy prisoners. Today, these bases provide thousands of jobs for Georgians and pump millions of dollars into the state's economy. A major contribution to the war came from the large number of civilians, many women, who built Liberty ships during the war. These ships were used to transport troops and supplies to both the European and Pacific fronts. In all, 187 ships used during the war were built in either Savannah or Brunswick. We studied that early in the year. We have two major ports in the state of Georgia. So today, we still have them today. And during this time period in history, many of the ships that were being built for the war effort were being built right here in Georgia. So we're building all these airplanes, building all these ships, mainly by women, and it's providing jobs, lots and lots of jobs, people making lots of money. So that depression that we're in, this is providing many more jobs and bringing our nation most certainly out of this Great Depression that was into an area, time of prosperity for the state of Georgia. Georgia became the home of the Liberty ship, a large ship, a squared hull. That's that Liberty ship right there being built right here in the state of Georgia. We just talked about the military bases. Georgia military installations include Fort Benning, Fort Gordon, Fort McPherson, Robbins Air Service Command in Macon, and Hunterfield and Savannah. This is during World War II. And again, all of this provides money, provides jobs for the state of Georgia. All right. Next, when explain the economic military contributions of Richard Russell and Carl Vinson. So Richard Russell Jr. was a governor of Georgia and U.S. Senator serving the Senate for 38 years. Born in Winder, Georgia, Russell was a graduate of the University of Georgia. After serving as a lawyer for a year, at the age of 23, he was one of the youngest people ever elected to the Georgia General Assembly in 1931. Russell was elected governor of the state, the youngest in the 20th century. Russell's time as governor was short-lived, however. The death of Senator William J. Harris vacated a Senate seat, which Russell won. Russell played a major role as a senator, serving on the Armed Service and Appropriations Committees. He gained a great amount of influence on U.S. military policy. An advocate for a strong military during the 1930s, he helped the U.S. prepare to fight in World War II. He was also influential in bringing and maintaining 15 military bases in the state. So when you think Richard Russell, I want you to think military bases, He was a great proponent of bringing those into our state. So think Richard Russell, military bases. Military bases, along with many other research facilities, including the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, which is based in Atlanta, and federal funding of other projects throughout the state. This attention to the acquisition of military installations for the state had major economic impact. Remember, all these bases in the state leads to jobs for people, which means money. Russell's strong segregationist beliefs caused him to oppose many civil rights bills during his career. Historians argue that these beliefs likely prevented Russell from gaining the presidency. However, with all the Russell's political accomplishments, he believed that his most important was the creation of the National School Lunch Program. That's pretty awesome. I actually forgot about that one. That's pretty neat. So think Richard Russell military bases. Then we have Representative Carl Vinson. Um, Carl Vinson is also often quoted as saying the most expensive thing in the world is a cheap army and navy. In his 51 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, yes, you just heard that right, 51 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, the longest in U.S. history, Vinson made his mission to make certain that the U.S. spent funds on both, especially the Navy. The man known as the father of the two-ocean Navy was born in Baldwin County, Georgia. After graduating from Mercer University School of Law and serving as an attorney, he was elected to the Georgia General Assembly in 1908. In 1912, he lost his seat, but was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. His biggest challenge in his 51-year career came from Tom Watson in 1918. For the most part, Vinson ran unopposed for much of his tenure. Vinson earned his nickname, the Admiral, due to his advocacy for a strong Navy during the 1920s and 1930s, though his calls for strengthening the U.S. military were largely ignored during the isolation period of the 1920s. As war began to rage in both Europe and Asia, his policies became more accepted and the nation started preparing for war. Vinson continued to be involved in military matters all the way up until his retirement from Congress in 1964. Due to his hard work for over 50 years, Vinson received the Presidential Medal of Freedom and had a U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier named after him. That's pretty awesome, too. Vinson insisted on developing and maintaining a strong Army and Navy. So I need to remember that for him. So with Russell, you think military bases. With Vinson, you think strong Navy. Very strong military presence. I think that's pretty much it. Let's see. Vinson pushed through Congress 2 bills to expand naval aviation by building 10,000 planes, the training of 16,000 pilots, and the establishment of 20 air bases, as well as the construction of naval facilities. The economic impact on Georgia, especially coastal Georgia, during World War II was evident. Over 90%, listen to this, 90% of the workforce on Georgia military installations were civilians. Over 20,000 jobs were brought to local communities. As chairman of the Armed Forces Committees in 1955, Vinson encouraged construction of Fort Benning in Columbus. Fort Benning is one of the largest bases in the United States to this day. All right, guys.